We're going to continue from where we left off last time, and I'll just review quickly. We saw two sources, one about snon, cutting snon, that's in Chulin, and that talked about that if you cut it with a knife, then it's, even though it's not in tam gam, perhaps, again, sorry, not the snon is the case just that it's a vegetable and it's cold, and yet it's considered hot, and that therefore if you cut a knife with a knife, the snon will take on the properties of the knife. If the knife was fleshik, this snon will be fleshik and will be usher to eat with kutach. Then we saw another source in Avodah Zarah, which said that if you cut chiltit with a knife, and it seemed to say the Gemara there that if the knife was noten tam of gam, which meant it's old, it's 24 hours been clean, it'll nevertheless impart treif, because it's a treif knife, it's a Avodah Zarah knife or a treif knife. It's kind of a rule of thumb. If you're in Avodah Zarah, you're probably talking about Isser v'heter. And if you're in Chulin, you're either talking about Isser Heter, but you could also be talking about Basar B'chalav. So the Avodah Zarah Gemara is actually talking about Isser, and there it's saying that the Chiltit will be Asser. Not just that you can't eat it with Kutach, it'll be Asser. And the Gemara there seems to say that the knife is not in tam of gam, and the Chiltit wakes up the flavor of that knife, even though would normally be noten tam gam, it's now noten tam l'shvach because of the harifut of the chiltit. And the Rishonim there's lots of ways to understand this Gemara. We saw last time one way to say that the Gemara isn't talking about an old knife, it's talking about fat on the knife being pagum in a relative sense to the chiltit. In other words, you don't want fat in your chiltit. That was the Rabbeinu Yonah said that. But the way most people understand it is no, it's talking about an old knife and that it wakes up the flavor. And that creates this interesting din of, you have an old knife from a week ago and it's clean, and you cut an onion with it, and now the onion is forbidden to eat. If it's a treif knife, it's forbidden to eat, and if it's a fleshik knife, it's forbidden to eat that onion with milk. Now, there's also a discussion in the Gemara, or in the Rishonim, is chiltit a special case? And is snon a special case? So you have basically three possibilities, and all three are taken by Rishonim. One possibility is that only chiltit does this thing of waking up pagum flavor. The other possibility is that no, chiltit and snon do it, but only those two. And the third possibility is that anything that's harif does this, like chiltit. And there are different, in other words, there are Rishonim that hold each of those possibilities. And actually I want to sort of get into that right now.
What is
It's this word, I have it written down but I don't have it in front of me. I forget, maybe what? Say it again? Yeah, something.
People who are allergic to garlic and onion still eat it, but it's very, very uncommonly used today.
Yeah, it's like, I read once that it's used in Indian food.
What is it called? Asofetida, I think.
Yeah, it's something like that. Asofetida. I can't. It's got a lot of vowels in it. It's got a lot of vowels.
It's a common spice used in Indian cooking, especially Southern cuisine. It's one of the major ingredients in a puree. The word fetid is in there on purpose because actually it has kind of an intense, even a little bit like decaying smell, but it's used to give a sharpness to the flavor.
And now the interesting thing also is that we're talking about the seeds of the chiltit, which may explain why it's kulo aser. This is also a key point. Because if I cut a radish, maybe just the top of the radish has been impermeated with flavor. But if I cut, because maybe it only goes through a certain amount. But if I cut a seed, so the seed is so small that it goes through the whole seed. So that could be why the Gemara says it's kulo aser, because it's of its size, not just because of the harifut of the chiltit. That's also a question in Rishonim. Is it just because of the size, or is it if the chiltit would be big, it would also forbid the whole thing? Like a radish.
My understanding is that it's also incredibly, incredibly powerful. That when you cook with it, you only use about a pinch.
Yeah, it's probably the Gemara says that if that it destroys that it can damage your intestines. It's very very harif. Yeah, I mean I guess
Yeah, it comes in like a bottle and you kind of like poof it out and you do like 1, 2 at the most.
So there you go. It's so it makes sense when the Gemara is talking about that case that it makes sense to say, well, wait a second, it's only that case. But the Rambam, well, first of all, that's the case in Avodah Zarah. We also have the case of tznon, and tznon is not particularly harif. You could eat it raw, probably. So if your main source for this halacha is the Gemara in Chulin, then you have no reason to say everything is not the same. The only problem is the Gemara in Chulin doesn't specifically say that it wakes up an old vessel. It's not clear exactly. It could be that the knife.
It's very spicy. There's rational.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Lena, my wife points out that in Russia they have very very spicy radishes that you can't eat.
It's like crayon.
It's like chrein. It's even worse than chrein probably. There are some kind of radishes that you cannot eat. Actually, there's a story in my uncle in Netziv, the Makor Baruch, where he talks about the difference between white onions and black onions, one being harif and the other not, something like that. But in any case, so there are some very strong. So it could also be. But the Rambam says all devarim harifim are equivalent. Actually, and we'll see the Rambam. But let's turn to the. So that's the idea. I was saying, I was in the middle of saying that if your source is the Chulin one, then you don't have necessarily the idea that an eno ben yomo, that an old knife can also impart flavor. If that's your source, it could be only a ben yomo knife. And in fact, that's the way that the Shulchan Aruch paskins. That basically he takes that Gemara in Chulin and ignores kind of the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, and says that it doesn't take, if you have Eino Ben Yomo knife, there's no problem. Unfortunately, that's not the halacha that we may be used to, because we don't follow that opinion. We do go by the Avodah Zarah. So let's go to the tour. Let's go to the tour and let's read a little bit of the tour. Gary, do you want to read a little bit of the tour? But make your volume louder or something. Your microphone. All right, go ahead. Can other people hear it, Gary? It's kind of quiet. Maybe. All right, yeah, go ahead. I think we can hear you. Snom.
Wait, where are you?
Sadi Vav in the tour. That's right, yeah. I'm not going. Rabbi Lennis wants to keep Sadi Zion to be the next year. By the way, all right. So we have two possible ways of solving this problem. One is that you just read kolef. You take klipa. You cut your fleshik onion. Just cut a klipa off, and now you can use that onion in milkich because it's just a klipa. Second possibility is taste the onion, and if the onion doesn't taste meaty, then eat it. And this.
Why wouldn't it list the? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Why wouldn't it list tasting as the first reason? Because that saves more of your food. It before than cutting?
I don't know the order. That's a good question. You're right. It could be, yeah, I don't know. Don't know. Maybe he wants to teach you the idea that it only goes in a klipa amount. Maybe you have to taste that klipa amount. In other words, if you would taste the other side of the onion, it's not going to help you. He first has to teach you, I think this is a good answer. He first has to teach you that it's the klipa, and then tell you can taste it, but it's important then, if it would be the whole thing, then you could taste anywhere in the onion. But once he tells you it's klipa, he's telling you you'd have to taste the klipa. And it wouldn't be sufficient to taste some other part of the onion that maybe never got the meat flavor. But what's interesting here is how do we hold? We hold in general that we don't rely on a timat akum. But this is a tima of a Jew because it's just basar. It's just meat or milk. So therefore...
Can't be trusted when it's
well, if you remember, this is kind of a review, but if you remember there was a machloket.
And whether we can trust
whether we can trust ourselves. There was, oh now I don't remember, was it the, I want to say the Noda Yehuda, but I don't remember. I want to say the Noda Yehuda who said that our tastes are no longer able to discern things. And therefore it's nothing to do with whether it's a Jew or a Gentile. So even here we wouldn't agree with the Torah, according to that opinion. It was an Acharon who said that. You remember that, Gary?
No, I don't.
No.
It sounds a bit generic, but maybe they spoke to them.
Well, it's part of this. It's kind of a nail in the coffin of halacha being natural. In other words, it's saying no, we're never going to use anything but shishi. Okay, so those are the two possible ways of solving the problem. Nothing to do with that would solve it entirely. Varashba. Go ahead. So wait a second. So now we have the Rashba saying, no, klipa is not enough. The whole thing is asur. I guess it's like it's hot, so it goes through all the way. Okay, and he says, but the Rosh doesn't say like that. And now look at this Sefer Truma. This becomes an important point.
Do we presume then that the Rosh is taking the more, like the Rosh refuses the Rashba's kind of more categorical reading?
Yeah.
We don't get what the Rosh's position. The Rosh's position is.
Yeah, it's a strange comment.
Right, it is a strange comment. Lo katav kain. In other words, I think what he's saying. I think what he's saying is that his father didn't address the issue head on. I mean, right? In other words, he just didn't write that you have this thing of Isser. He just maybe, not sure. I'm not sure. I didn't look at the Rosh. It is kind of a throwaway because we already have that opinion. That was what the Torah said. He's saying the Rashba says this, and my father did not agree to the Rashba. Okay. I guess he's bringing it more closer to the current halacha. But read the Sefer Truma, Gary. Oh, and that's our big problem. In other words, even if it's an old knife, it's asur. It doesn't say exactly if it's kulo asur, klipa, or by the way, it says kolef. It says klipa. We'll see that it's not going to be klipa in the end. It's going to be netila. And then read the next thing of the Torah. Yeah. So we started with snow, and now we're throwing in 3 more things. Garlic, onion, and leek. Okay. Now read on. V'im bashlam. V'im avar. Okay, so what you would expect him to say v'hainu k'dei klipa. Why does right? Because we just said k'dei klipa. Why does he say k'dei kol sakin? Because it could. I mean, klipa is also going to be a problem, but it could be that it's k'dei hasakin. Well, in other words, the sakin could be smaller. What if sakin is bigger than the klipa? Well, it still can't be more than the klipa, right? The klipa is all it could have absorbed. So the klipa, if the sakin is smaller than the klipa, then it can't be more than the sakin. You understand? He's throwing in another factor here. It's not just the klipa of the onion, it's also the size of the knife. It can't be more than either of them. We only have to mevatel the smallest of the two. But go ahead, aval. Now explain that. That's a hard one to explain. If it was a non-Jewish knife,
Then it goes back to the vegetable.
then you need. Why do you need shishim keneged kol etznon? It should be just against the klipa.
I know the difference is between an onion and its because it's not as hard. You have to sakina with its stone. Because you push it much harder to get the knife through.
I don't think so. I don't think it was any difference.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Because I don't hear before and I recalled. Okay, great.
Regarding, I just want to go back to the Rosh thing really quick. I think
Yeah.
maybe the Rosh is being brought in as a disciple of the Rashba, so he's challenging the reception of this tradition of the Rashba, since the Rosh is like his father's a reliable conduit for this.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, the Rosh got his job because the Rashba is a Haskam, so he'd be like a reliable reporter.
Right. Well, in general, yeah. I mean, in general, you're saying. I mean, that'd be interesting to investigate. If every time he quotes the Rashba and his father doesn't agree, if he mentions it, probably he does. You're right. It makes sense. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. So my question was, why don't you need against the klipa? Anyone suggest something?
Why do you what need?
Why does he say if you use a goyish knife, then you need 60 against the kol snon? How did the whole snon get into the picture? It should have been just klipa of the snon.
You don't know where it's been? Because we can't trust the status of Ben Yomo or not.
No, we know it's. Well, we're talking according to those. If we hold like the Sefer Truma, then it's even if it's Eino Ben Yomo, and if it's.
Right.
In other words, it's still that machloket, but this either way you need against the. If it's depending on which kind of a knife it is, but you might need the whole. But it should be just klipa. So if you look.
Oh, well, because,
Yeah.
well, can I suggest maybe it's because of the difference between Basar Chalav and Isser V'Heter.
That's
and,
yeah.
and
I like
whether
that.
whether we apply the principle of Chaticha Naseis Nevela to all Isurim, or whether we just apply it to Basar V'Chalav.
Okay, so what are we saying here? So this is.
So maybe he...
I was thinking of a different thing, but here, but the previous case was milk. It wasn't Isser at all. It wasn't milk and meat. It was just milk, or it was just meat. So it was heter. And now we have Isser. So he's holding that Yesh Hanan Bashar Isurim, which is not the normal position of the Tur. We usually understand the Tur as holding not like that. That there is no in Shar Isurim. No. But anyway, here he seems to be holding that there is. But still, it only goes in 60, so 60 is only what you get. I mean, it only goes in klipa. Sorry, it cuts the knife, only klipa. So how can you, even if you hold chanan, how does the flavor get to the rest of the onion? You've got a 6-foot long onion, and you cut it in the middle. Why should the whole thing be usher? So look in the Bach Gimel, and he says like this. He says like this: "Umash katuv aval im chatach besakin shel goy tzarich shishim keneged kol etzno." Gam ze midivrei baal hatruma. So that's also written by the Baal Truma. Umayri nami dechatach dak dak. It's only talking where you cut small, and this is a big mistake that people have. That they think that the whole onion is now fleshik. Well, it is kind of, but it's only a chumrah. But this halach is not a chumrah. This is saying that it's cut dak dak. De'im lo kain. Lo hayat tzarich l'sha'er ela keneged masha balada hainu kedei netila. Like I said, this would only be have to mavata the netila. But since you cut it small, dak dak, then each piece is a kedei netila. So you chopped up, and it's dafka why it's onions because is it onions? Is it onions? Called snon. Fine, it's snon. But you chopped up those snon very small, and now we have chaticha nase nevela, like Gila said, so that we can create more isser than even the blade of the knife. If the blade of the knife was, a volume of 10 cubic centimeters, whatever, we could create 11 cubic centimeters. And the onions were 11 cubic centimeters, we'd have 11 isser. Because we're not just worried about mavataling the original knife, we now chaticha nase nevela, but that's only if you cut, but again, it can only go kedei klipa. So therefore, each piece that you cut has to be kulo aser because of its size being small enough for the flavor to permeate. And then, so why is there chanan? Because, I'll tell you why, because if I cut, let's say I don't have chanan, and I cut lots of onions with this one knife. Let's say I cut 1,000 onions with this one knife. So I can't create more isser than I started with. The blade was all that was usser, and it has in it, 10 cubic centimeters of isser. No matter how many onions I cut, I'm never going to have more than 10 cubic centimeters of isser. So he shouldn't say neged kol ha-tznon. He should say neged kol ha-sakin. So when he says kol ha-tznon, he must mean that could be even more than the knife. How could it ever be more than the knife? Only with the principle of chanan. Because the principle of chanan says, even if only one particle of treif went into this tiny little piece of onion, but I don't know where it is, but there's only one particle there, the whole onion can become aser. So in other words, I cut it with that knife. Imagine it's hot. I cut it with that knife. A little particle of treif went into that little piece of onion. It went in kedei klipa, so it went in anywhere in that whole area. And I don't know where it is, but now I'm going to give a din on that little tiny piece of onion of chanan. And I need to bavata the whole onion, not just the little particle that's in it. That's the principle. That's the principle of chanan.
I thought chanan was like this super isser.
Say it again.
I thought chanan was a super nuclear isser that only happens when you combine the milk. Normal things are butter.
You're right. That is the opinion. You're in good company. That is the opinion of the Mechaber of the Shulchan Aruch. That we only say it by. But we saw, and that is the opinion of Rabbeinu Ephraim in the Tosfot. But we saw that the Tosfot doesn't agree in general with Rabbeinu Chaim, and therefore the Ashkenazim hold that same principle applies to Isser in general, not just Basar B'chalav. And this is talking about a knife of Isser. That's why it says Sakin Shel Goy. But you have to combine Chanan and the Dak Dak. It's not enough to say Chanan, because if you didn't cut it small, then that particle could have only gone through a klipa.